Welcome everyone to Hunt the Habitat. A great dog and a shotgun will only get you so far in the uplands. In this podcast, Ann Jandernaw helps us to attain a more in-depth understanding of the birds we love to hunt, their habits, their habitat, and how those change through the year and through the hunting season. Hunt the habitat, find the birds. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Hunt the Habitat with Ann Jander, brought to you by Scout and Hunt Maps. Ann, are you above water up there? I guess my first question is, because I know we were trading texts during some of the recent storms, and we made comments about seeing animals starting to tear up.
You made the comment.
You had a lot of rain up there.
I had over 5 inches that one day. It started to wash part of the road out, so it was a good excuse to go and play on the tractor for about 4 hours plus.
We're getting back to that horsepower theme again.
From the that thing's got some power, a little more than I expected. It got some oomph on it.
Like I say, anything so that you can use equipment. You're just looking for excuses.
I think a backhoe. I like running backhoes too. With an extendable boom. That'd be the next nice thing to have. Or a skid steer, or a small excavator would be cool. So I just like my equipment.
My son and I have a kind of a similar story. We were out in North Dakota late November, and there was a 2-track that, again, large culvert pipe running underneath, and somehow, of course, there was a leak and eroded. And of course, we didn't know it. We just knew that there was water on both sides and the 2-track ran over it. So we're walking back to the truck and I take a step onto this thing and fall straight down in darn near up to my chest. And it's cold. And of course, I did the only rational thing to do. I said, grab my gun, which tells you where your priorities are. He pulls me out laughing, just laughing hysterically, which is what fathers and sons do. So now he thinks he's got a route around this thing. He takes about 3 steps, and what does he do? He fell right in up to his chest. So, yeah, I had revenge. It's a story that gets retold and embellished frequently between the two of us.
Skip took out, back when the heyday of guiding, Skip took out a gentleman from down in Chicago, and I believe he worked on the Board of Trade. He was a commodities broker. Mm-hmm. And he'd never been grouse hunting. So, they're going, Skip's saying, you want to stay out of that. That's the Tag Alder area. And you got water in there. You really don't want to be in there. But for some reason or other, the guy just didn't get it. Next thing, Skip hears a splash. And we're talking new shotgun, new clothes, new everything. And this was not a cheap gun either. Skip looks over there, and all he sees is 2 arms sticking out of the water with the gun held up.
Oh!
God save the gun. I mean, I've seen that happen more than once. I hunted with another guy, same thing. He got off too far, and the water had eroded underneath the bank. And whoosh. And I never can get a picture of those things.
It just happens too fast. You're trying to get the human being out of the water while they're trying to save their gun.
Someone's got to have a cell phone. But yeah, save the gun.
Save the gun, absolutely. So, well, what is going on in the woods right now?
It's dry again. When it's cool, I've still got this crazy grouse behind me drumming. I don't know what his deal is. He must be a young one. Either that or the old one. He didn't make it, and there's a young one there. I don't know, but this one drums. And it's like, okay, you should be on the tail end of this. No, dum. And then I had a hen walking up the driveway just an hour ago. And of course, I've loosened up all that gravel now. But she was stalking up there, and she's like, I'm thinking, I bet you're leading me away from someplace. And so I sort of marked in my mind where it started and where she finally went in. And she's real close to a hardwood area, which is right on the edge of this aspen. So And I've seen this one grouse around here all the time. And usually when you keep seeing the same one in the area, give or take, there's usually a nest somewhere around there. So I'll leave her be, but I'm watching for this. But I think I should be able to go back, and I think she's looking at that loose gravel for dusting. So it'd be cool to see that.
Okay,
I mean,
right. And we're going to put everybody's mind at ease here because you told me
yes,
there
there was
was
a
a
Charlie
sighting.
sighting on that drumming log, which I think now it's become his secondary log, not his primary log. So he was there. There's one dropping. That's it.
Okay.
He's still miffed at the township for cutting all his branches.
For cutting that back, yeah, because it really was perfect before.
Couldn't get any better.
Hey, and this is a little bit of a review, but you talked about this a lot last year. We're a little bit late in the drumming season, but when you're listening for drummers, you're not listening for a drummer. You're listening for concentrations of drummers, right?
And part of it is that if where the drummers are, where to hunt late season. Because the hen will utilize areas within these multiple drummers' habitat. So, and she needs to work that area. What it'll be is typically a group of hens. And the male habitat provides what that hen needs to get her through the winter. So it's really important.
Are most of the hens sitting on nests at this point, do you think?
I think so. It's like the aspen right now, the leaves are just now coming out pretty good. We've improved a lot in the foliage aspect of it from last week to this week. But of course, it was warmer weather. And yeah, I think they're sitting on nest. For the female grouse, once the drumming's done and she's mated with the male, and now it's time to find where she's going to lay her eggs. Now, that could be within a very short distance of the male that she mated with, or it could be over a mile away. She's looking for some type of habitat that catches her eye, so to speak, that she likes. Typically in the upper Midwest, there's usually a clone of male aspen trees where she'll be eating some of the flowering catkins from there. And there's other trees. I've seen them eat some of the ironwood buds even. I've seen them eat those. So, and then she'll take a few steps from the nest that she's created, which is more applicable, you could say, a bowl in the ground. And it typically could back up to a stump or rock or a pile of dirt that she can tuck herself back there and then have a really good view around her of any possible predators that could be coming her way. When it's time for feeding, she basically will take a few steps, then fly to where she wants to eat, and then she'll fly back and take a few steps, and then she's on the nest again.
As far as woodcock, and again, we brushed on this in the last podcast, but we're further along now. We're 2-3 weeks down the road here.
I would say definitely the chicks have had. Up here where I'm at, I highly doubt if any of the grouse chicks have hatched, because if you look at it, once she starts to lay an egg laying will start somewhere around 3 to 7 days after the mating, and typically the hen lays an egg every 24 to 30 hours. If she's going to have like a hatch of 10 eggs, that could take 15 days, and it takes 20 days for 14 eggs. So the chicks, depends on when they mated, sometime between now and probably the second week of June, hatching going on.
And as far as the woodcock chicks go, how long are they dependent?
Chicks usually are capable of flight within probably about 2 weeks of age. And by the end of the third week, then they're able to be very difficult to catch. You're going to be chasing them or watching them fly off. The interesting thing is the chick's weight will triple during the first week. And by the third week, they're half the size of the adult already. The young chicks stay in the general area where they were raised. For the most part, mortality rates are low. However, the hen grouse will move the chicks to the summer brood range. So sometimes they can travel a mile. It doesn't always mean just because they were hatched here is where they're going to stay. She'll start basically trying to herd them. It's like trying to, I guess we joke about herding cats. Like one goes this way, one goes that way, and she's making noises to these little chicks. She'll actually make noises to the chicks when they're in the egg just before they hatch, so that she's imprinting that noise to the chick.
But is that then to say, taking a step back and talking about the woodcock again now, since they don't move their brood, typically they are going to nest in the same sort of cover where we would find them in the fall?
where I have seen hens with a brood, it's the same place I typically hunt, except it's a little bit bigger range. There'll be a little more diversity. It depends on, is it an area where it's moist or is it an area where it's a little bit moist? And of course, you've got the flights that come through, and then that could be hit and miss anywhere in a particular cut. But if you have the resident woodcock,
Sure.
it's going to be in a specific band where you're going to find them. And moisture is the key there. The young chicks for woodcock, I mean, they're very dependent on the mother. The young chicks, they'll try to probe for worms, but they don't have a lot of success in the beginning. And the hen will actually catch the worms for the little chicks and let them take it from her bill. And this could only last for possibly a week. But you got to think about when they're born, that bill's too pliable. It's not stiffened up yet to be able to probe. And a young chick's bill will grow 2 millimeters a day for the first 15 days. And the brood will break up somewhere between the 6th and the 8th week after hatching.
So we talked about the rain a little bit, but Ann, things have been kind of dry up there anyway, and it seems like the woods have recovered pretty quick.
There's some moisture, but it's not like it's horribly, horribly wet.
That's great news. Yeah, because again, we're getting to that point where there's chicks on the ground, and we don't need a lot. Yeah. So drumming,
we're down to the trickle of it. The one thing is, like, this rain came insects, so a lot of young birds of the year will have plenty of insects to eat, and I'll attest to that. The mosquitoes have just really come out in the last 4 days. Prior to that was the black flies. Now you've got the tag team effect of black flies and mosquitoes. It's not really nice in the woods.
One of the things you wanted to talk about today, well, there were some definite things you wanted to cover this week with regard to puppies, just kind of dovetailing on what we talked about maybe 3 weeks ago. But offline, we talked a little bit about spaying and neutering, and you've got some pretty strong opinions.
If you're not going to breed it, you spay and neuter it. Well, some of them are wanting it done way too soon. And the females need to really experience their first heat cycle before you undergo spaying. And then even when they are done with that first heat cycle, you need to give it 2 to 3 months after that, roughly. But these dogs need it to finish their full development. They need what they were given to finish filling out. If you spay and neuter a puppy too early before they've reached their physical and reproductive maturity, it can have really severe potential detrimental effects on their health and the development. Part of that development can be skeletal development. Early spaying or neutering, it can interfere with the proper closure of the growth plates. That's critical. And potentially it can increase the risk of orthopedic issues such as hip dysplasia, crucial ligament tears, and other joint problems. Muscle development. The hormones play a critical role in the development of muscle, and early spaying and neutering can disrupt this process, which then leads to a decrease in muscle mass and strength, which can, again, affect the puppy's overall athleticism and mobility. Joint health, urinary tract health, behavior development, sexual development. I don't think we were meant to have that taken away from these animals. They were given estrogen and testosterone hormones for a reason. And it was basically either for reproductive and for keeping pace with the development that they need at a certain given time in their life. Typically, one of the guidelines that you should look at is, and you can ask your vet or talk about, when does the growth plate close? And you want to look at when the growth plate closes. And for a small to medium dog, it's 8 to 12 months. But like my line is somewhere between 12 and 18 months. And the really large breeds are 18 to 24 months because it takes longer for them to develop. You have more to develop into. This is all things that you need to think about. I'm not saying don't spay and don't neuter, but what I am saying is give the animal a chance to grow into its skeletal potential. The muscles are fully developed. Let it go through the first heat cycle. parts developed and everything, and the males especially, the head development and the filling out of the head and in the closing of the growth plates, let that get done. I look at it this way. You're going to be responsible as an owner, unless you're going to be a backyard breeder. And if you're responsible as an owner of the dog, one is to let it fully mature. And then if you want to spay and neuter it, then fine. But to just neuter them or spay them real early, you're preventing a breeding accidentally happening. But there's a lot more to lose than just doing a spay and neutering. And it's like, oh, they can't breed. But what about all the development issues? Whether it be joint, behavioral, sexual development, muscle development, skeletal development. Those are pretty important aspects. So I think most of us are conscientious enough to not allow our dog, if it's coming into heat or is at the point where it can mate, a male, that you're going to be the checks and balances for not allowing something that to happen. And as an owner, you have to make the decision by what you feel about it. But these are my decisions, having dealt with a lot of this and seen some of the dogs that I've seen in the past that were. I saw one male that was neutered early. His head was not proportioned right for the body. It was really weird. So for every person that has one view, there'll be 10 people that have another view. So that's my opinion, and I'll stick to it and stay with it. But I'm just not going to spay and neuter my dogs early just because, we might have an accidental breeding. Part of that's my management. I'm responsible to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right. Something else you wanted to talk about, again, those of us with puppies, the puppies are starting to get a little older. We've had them at home for a little while. You wanted to talk about exercise sessions and length of exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when that puppy first goes home with someone, you've got to keep the exercise short. 'Cause think of a small child. They don't have the focus. And if they have too much exercising, that's when things get sloppy when they're running. Because if you looked at an x-ray of a puppy, you can see the main bones in the legs, but there's a gap between each bone. It's where your ligaments and your tendons and all that, it has to grow together. When you see a regular x-ray, everything looks like the skeletal thing. Everything connects. Well, it isn't that way when they're little. And I don't have the correct terminology, I realize, for it, but take it easy. A little goes a long way. If you overstimulate them by letting them tear around and run around like a maniac, it reminds me of a child that's been on too much sugar. And they're just all over the place. You control the length of time. In up to 4 months in that, I figure I tell my clients, and I send them home with a sheet of the do's and the don'ts and all that, is that the short, frequent walks on soft surfaces like grass or in the woods is great, but keep them off the concrete. About 5 minutes of walking per month of age and up to twice a day. I had one person that was taking a dog that was 12 weeks old on 2.5-mile walks. I about lost my mind. Down pavement. Just because the dog likes to do it doesn't mean it's good for it. They're still little. Basically, by the time they're 4 to 6 months old, then you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes per walk a couple times a day. But don't try to do everything at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that last time. Yeah, don't try to limit what you're doing.
Or if you have a place that you want to get to in the woods and you're like, I got this piece on my property. It would be great to take the pup there. I could lay down a little drag scent or something like that. But it's like 10 minutes to get there. You'll carry the puppy. Just carry it to where you want to be. Keep it fresh and then put it down a little ways from where you want to be and then work it into it. Those are things that you can do, but don't expect the puppy to go 10 minutes to get there, 5 to 10 minutes messing around with the scent and all that, and another 10 minutes back at 8 to 12 weeks old. It's nuts. Mm-hmm. That's when accidents happen. That's when they get ramped up and they run into something and injuries happen. I had one gentleman that got a dog from me that was 6 or 7 months old. And, of course, I went through 25, 30 minutes, maybe twice a day. And, well, he ran it a lot longer. And so he said, the dog's lame. And it was like this second or third day. And I asked him how long he was running. He told me. And I said, well, you're running it too long. But you could tell in his voice that he's thinking he's got a problem. So I said, I'll tell you what, you come up here and I'll pay for the x-rays. So I got a hold of my vet and I said, I want you to look at the x-rays. If there is a problem, then it's my problem. But if you look at there and you see that the problem is from over-exercising, please chew him out. Well, he got chewed out.
Okay.
It was costly for me because it was $300 or $400. But it proved my point. You got to do right by the puppy first. It's not about how many birds you can put this puppy on. It's about doing right by the pup.
Yeah. Well, and you've got a lot of 6 to 7 month old puppies out there right now. I mean, the dogs that were born over the fall are in that 6 to 7 month range. And what kind of exercise should they be getting at this moment?
Basically, at 6 to 7 months, it's still going to be that range of, let's call it 6 to 12. Mm-hmm. They can handle longer runs. You're 20 to 30 minutes twice a day and avoid overexertion that can cause joint issues. So it's still about the same thing. And 4 to 6 is 15 to 20, and then 6 to 12 is 20 to 30. Watch the pup. Also, keep it out of trashy areas where they got to jump over things. Keep it on a more of a level surface instead of making it a steeplechase.
Hi, Pierre.
That's not Pierre. That's the puppies.
Oh,
give me a second. I got to rescue some of my attachments to my shop vac. Hugo is after my attachments to the shop vac. So just a second.
Go for it.
I don't know what he thought he was going to do with that, but I don't mind it if he learned how to use it instead of chew on it. Hugo's not quite. Well, he's probably close, but he's just almost a year old, and everything's very curious oriented right now. And what can I put in my mouth?
Puppy. Yep.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, and this isn't planned. This wasn't part of our outline here, and we talked about this podcast, Ann. But
what? We have an outline?
We have. There are usually about 3 bullet points that we never follow, but that's okay. We have a lot of fun.
Going down some tirade about something or out in the middle of it. People don't know how many times Pierre and Pascal disrupt the whole thing.
Absolutely. But again, getting back, okay, so you've got all sorts of people that have a 6, 7, 8 month old puppy right now. Okay, again, that whole batch that was born over the fall. Okay, what's from a feeding perspective? Is there a changeover at that point? These aren't little tiny puppies anymore.
Well, I don't switch food until 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't let them get overweight, because now's the time they should be lean and fit. It's not that a dog shouldn't always be lean and fit, but the problem is when they really get older, it's hard to keep them lean and fit because the joints just don't work the same as they used to, and they're not running in. But when they're young, you'll see them go, and if you throw a frisbee, that dog's going to launch itself airborne, do a twist in the air so it lands on its feet looking at you. After it just ran away from you and going straight out to that frisbee, and then it grabs it and turns right in the air and lands back looking at you. You don't want a dog overweight when it's having fun. Not that I would want to be doing frisbee stuff with my setters, but they get ramped up and they think they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. So keep them in their fighting weight, so to speak.
I don't know. I've got mine's about to be 9, my older one. And we work really, really hard keeping her somewhat lean, making sure she has a waistline, because once they do get out of shape, it is so much harder when they're older.
If they get out of shape, the easiest thing for them is to get them swimming.
Okay.
We talked about that a lot last summer.
Yeah. Once it gets hot, I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But I know you're a huge proponent of that. So backtracking just a little bit from what we talked about at the top of the podcast, most of us don't do much scouting this time of year. We don't really get into the woods as much as maybe we would like. But this isn't a bad time to scout, is it? Because not everything is grown in completely just yet.
No, it's not a bad time to scout, and as long as you get out early enough before. About the time the sun's starting to hit that dew is when the bugs come out.
Mhm.
And it really starts warming up. And I know there's times when I've been out training early that you can tell it's getting hot, and at the same time the bugs just showed up. But yeah, it's a good time to look at the habitat. Typically, if there's been drummers in an area, you look at your cuts. You can look at how your other cuts are filling in, the ones that you've been waiting to see how they're going to mature. I'm always looking around at habitat and looking at how a cut fills in and doesn't fill in.
Yeah, I mean, if we wait a month and a half, and now you're walking through a jungle, it's much harder
Well,
to
we're close to a jungle
figure it
now.
out. Are we close?
Yes, we're very
Okay.
close right now. Yeah, we've hit that threshold pretty much.
Okay.
There's only a few trees left. See, black ash is your first ones to lose the leaves in the fall, and the last one to get its leaves in the spring. And the skunk cabbage is out in the woods in those low areas. Let's see, the fawns have just started being born. I've seen 4 in the last 2 days.
Oh, wow.
I saw a big mama bear with a second-year cub.
Looking for fawns.
Probably.
Yeah.
And I've got the birds are nesting, like the phoebes, they fly up, and I have one that keeps nesting. I hate where it's nesting, but I don't have the heart to kick it out. So every time you go in the shop, out comes this bird. Not after you, but it just flies out and everything. So I had a gal here last year that she's big into birds, and of course she announced it. The phoebe has built a nest by the shop, and I said, "Well, how much is it making a mess?" "Well, a little bit." She says, "Don't do that. Don't take it out of there." I said, "So now we're into save the phoebes, huh?" Doggone bird. And I had to put stuff down because it was making a mess all over. But it is pretty thick in the woods.
Okay. So I'm a little late.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Everything started to catch up with farther south.
All right. And I would remind all the hunters out there, they don't need to be reminded, but this is where we can start to improve on all our misses from last fall. The snow's gone. It's nice outside. It's nice to go out and shoot a little skeet and start to sharpen up shooting skills. Mm-hmm. We talked about that last year a little bit, but this is the time. We complain about our misses all the time. A low gun, and maybe stand on station 7 on a skeet range and take that straightaway off of a low gun, and then expand from there. Work your way around the course. But this is the time. Nice light loads. Someday maybe we'll talk a little bit about reloading here, but that really has nothing to do with maps or habitat or anything like that. But if you have the ability to reload, some nice light 3/4 ounce 20 gauge shells will do everything that you need to do. But this is the time to get out and start improving on your marksmanship.
And now's the time, if you're going to clip your dogs, get them clipped.
Yeah, I did mine. They look like skinned rats, but they're really comfortable.
They're just hiding behind the curtain because they feel naked.
They really do. Well, and I had to actually have somebody do it. We haven't talked about it at all, but I had shoulder surgery back in early March, and so I couldn't. It was really weird because my dogs have never been taken to a groomer to get clipped in their entire lives. And they didn't know what to make of all that. They were really happy to get back in the truck when I went to pick them up.
Did she do their nails?
She did not, but they were pretty short to begin with. I kept those trim at home. That's something I can do at home.
I did one time. A friend of mine took their dog to the groomer and I knew the gal, and I said, paint the toenails pink.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you suggested that.
he about blew a gasket when his Beazle came out with pink toenails.
Pink toenails.
Yeah, she didn't clip him. He was given a bath because out with pink toenails. And he was like, "Why in the heck did you do it?" She says, "Ann told me to do it. Wait till I see her."
Well, this shoulder surgery has put a hold on an awful lot of things. And Ann and I were just laughing a couple of days ago because I got the clearance to start doing gun mounts with a section of 2x2. So this is where I am right now. I can't pick up a gun yet.
What? I know what you need.
Uh-oh.
You need one of those laser things that go on the wall with a toy gun.
Well, you can slip that in the breech of your gun, in the barrel of your gun, but I don't know how I would attach it to a 2x2. Maybe duct tape.
Yeah, I bet you could do that. But they got that.
Yeah. That's actually a technique. That's actually training that you can do. Well, not just that. Okay. It teaches you. Now we're going to get into shooting a little bit, but it teaches you not to look at your bead. Okay. Which is, again, those of us that are shotgunners out there, we all know this. This is just a refresher. But in the shotgunning world, looking at your bead is death, or the lack of death. You're not going to kill anything. You have to look at your target. And one of the things that you can do is put a laser on and look at the corner on the ceiling in a bedroom, okay, and raise the gun and point the gun at an upper corner and move it along an edge, but never looking at the end of that gun, never looking at the bead. And it's great training, and it's something you can do all winter. Back when I used to teach kids to shoot trap, that was one of the things we would ask them to do, is just focus on the corner. So, yes, you can do that. But right now, the 2x2 is all I have, but I'm happy I can actually do this because the physical therapy gal said, well, now I know what's really important to you. She says, it's not all the exercises I'm giving you. All you care about is the fact that you can put a piece of board up to your face now. I says, yeah, you pretty much got that right. So, but I'm hoping in the next month I'll actually be able to pull a trigger.
So when do they think you'll be ready to be back to normal?
The goal is, so around here, there's a fall trap league that starts in August. Mm-hmm. My wife and I shoot that together. Obviously, I've missed summer league. And of course, haven't shot any sporting clays, haven't shot any skeet or anything like that. But the goal is that August 1st, I can shoot around a trap. And I can, of course, your trap gun's heavy. But I have a really, really nice 5.5 pound side-by-side that I could probably go out and shoot a little skeet with. And I'm hoping to do that in July. That's the goal. We'll see. But the physical therapist knows what my goals are. So,
are we there yet?
No, we are not close, but we're getting there. So, and I'm sure there are numerous of our listeners that have been through rotator cuff surgery, and mine was similar. In my case, it was a severed tendon, but that they know what I'm going through. They know exactly the timeline, and they know the anxiousness and when will I be able to do this, and finally, when can I pull a trigger? So it's going to be a long road. But we're traveling down it. Yeah.
All things come with time.
They do. So, and what else do you want to cover here today? Anything else?
No, I think this is just supposed to be a short podcast. Hopefully it comes out okay. Mm-hmm. As always, make sure you send me the questions.
And where should they send the questions?
Really, you're going to ask me that again? I'm glad I can cut this out.
You are ready for that.
Something like that. mobilehuntingmaps.com. And once you're on the home page, go to the word upland hunting up in the header part. Cursor over that, and then slide down to podcast. And then send the questions through our join the conversation at Hunt the Habitat.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I always like to hear about something that you might want us to talk about.
And again, this is a fabulous opportunity to pose your questions to somebody that lives this day in, day out. So do not pass this up. And
yeah, and I can tell you how to kill porcupines.
And we all need to learn that. Why? Did you just have to do one?
Yeah, I ran over it.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
What I've been surprised is once it got thrown off the road was how many times it got dragged back onto the road.
What's going to drag a porcupine on it? This sounds like the beginning of a joke, but what exactly is going to drag a porcupine on a road?
I don't know if it's vultures or a badger or whatever, but that carcass has gone on and off the road about 12 times.
Okay. So
something drags it out, and something drags it back in. And I just don't have any love for porcupines. There's a lot of things in life you can say, okay, this has a purpose, and this is what it does. And all the porcupines do is cause vet bills and girdle my trees. So if there's one within a mile of me, and I see it, it's gone.
Yes, absolutely. Sometime we should talk a little bit about, again, this is fodder for a future podcast, maybe talk about porcupine breaking. Because, my gosh, that's so important, especially if you're going out west, because you will not go to western North Dakota, western South Dakota, or Montana and not run into a porcupine. Hopefully your dogs are smart enough not to tangle with it, but I am constantly amazed at how many of them are out there. And, of course, they're not up in a tree, that you're out on the prairie. The situations where your dog has to deal with it are much more frequent.
So, I don't care for them.
All right, everybody, and thank you all for listening. And always remember, Scout and Hunt Maps, always there for you, whether you have cell reception or not, and giving you the information that you need to be successful. And everybody, always remember to hunt the habitat. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Steve.